I have not hidden my desire for the Sacramento Kings to draft Keegan Murray with the 4th overall pick. And those feelings are only getting stronger because on today's episode of Locked On Kings, I have the absolute privilege of being able to interview Iowa men's basketball head coach Fran McCaffery. Coached Keegan Murray the last 2 years. He's going to give us all the background we could possibly want on Keegan, talk about his NBA readiness. And yeah, he might be a little biased, but Coach McCaffery thinks that he could be both the best fit in Sacramento and the best player in this draft. It's all on today's episode of Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all regular season and all off season. If you're looking for in-depth analysis, game-by-game breakdowns, highlights, interviews with local and national experts, full coverage of the Sacramento Kings from January through December, this is the place for you, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And my name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm looking forward to covering my 9th season of Kings basketball professionally. This is year 5 for me hosting the Locked On Kings podcast. I currently work for ABC 10 News in Sacramento, and I am just giddy with excitement for this episode. As soon as I was able to secure Iowa head coach Fran McCaffery on Locked On Kings, I have barely been able to sleep with excitement for this conversation. It's not too often that you're able to get the head coach of one of the top prospects in a draft class this close to the draft to be able to come on a podcast, let alone a radio show, let alone a TV interview. And Coach McCaffery was nice enough to spend 20 minutes with me to talk about Keegan Murray. And hey, maybe Murray's not your pick for the Kings at 4. Maybe you think that the Kings, if they're going to pick Murray, should move down. I'm not going to tell you this is going to change your mind or you have to change your mind. Just listen to this intently. Listen to what Coach McCaffery has to say. Sure, there is some bias in there. Remember, he is Keegan's college head coach, so he's going to be speaking up and hyping up Keegan as much as possible, wanting him to get drafted as high as possible. But also listen to what Coach McCaffery has to say about Keegan's work ethic, and especially when he starts talking about how Keegan will welcome the pressure of being an immediate impact player in Sacramento alongside Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. I really think you're going to enjoy this conversation, even if Keegan Murray's not at the top of your draft board like he is mine. Without any further ado, I hope you enjoy this interview with Iowa men's basketball head coach Fran McCaffery. It is an absolute pleasure here on the Locked On Kings podcast to be joined by the head coach of Iowa men's basketball, Coach Fran McCaffery, joining me here on Locked On Kings. Of course, the coach of Keegan Murray, who, Coach, I'm going to lay my cards face up on the table right away for you. Keegan Murray has been my selection for really the last couple of weeks. If I were in charge of the Sacramento Kings, if I were general manager Monty McNair, Keegan Murray is the guy that I would have chosen as soon as I saw the Kings move up to 4 on draft lottery night. I was celebrating the idea of seeing Keegan Murray in a Kings uniform. So it's a pleasure to be able to talk to you. I'm looking forward to you solidifying those feelings and maybe taking those feelings to a higher level for me.
Well, first of all, you're spot on, Matt. I mean, I think I've had a lot of discussion. And quite frankly, we've had a number of really good players since I've been here. And the pros are the personnel people, they're really on top of stuff. And I've had a ton of guys come through here over the years, never with the intensity level of what it's been like the past year with Keegan. And I get that. He's that special. I'm not so sure he's not the best player in the draft. I'm not ready to say that he's not. But I have tremendous respect for those that are in that conversation. So I'm not going to be that guy that says, my guy's better than everybody else. But I don't know that I could say anybody's better than him. So, I mean, if he goes 4 with Sacramento, I think that'd be a great place for him. He'd be excited about that. I can tell you this. The fans of the Sacramento Kings would absolutely love him. I think they'll love his game. They'll love what he brings to the team. He's a winning player. He's a phenomenal teammate. But, sometimes we say this when we love people, but he is an even better person. when I would have conversations with, I mean, I've talked to GMs, directors of player personnel. I've talked to directors of security for NBA teams. When I tell them that Keegan Murray is zero maintenance, that's what he is. All he does is perform. He shows up, he grinds, he puts the extra time in. I mean, he's academic all Big Ten. I mean, there's never an issue with him on or off the floor in any capacity, and everybody in his team loves him. So he will be an asset not only to the basketball team there, but the entire franchise and the entire city.
Coach, I'm not sure how closely you follow the Sacramento Kings. I wouldn't blame you if it was not at all, but 16 years now that the Kings that the Kings have missed the playoffs. And one of the things we've discussed a lot about here in Sacramento is that it goes beyond just an X's and O's issue and a personnel issue. It's a culture issue here in Sacramento. And we've heard that word brought up a lot recently by different people surrounding and even as a part of the organization. The Kings want to establish a winning culture. It seems to me like Keegan Murray is a perfect, even as a rookie, is a perfect fit to help change and establish a winning culture in Sacramento.
Well, there's no question about that, man. I mean, he is a culture guy. He is going to be locked into being a professional. This is professional basketball. This is your livelihood. I think in some ways it has become the entertainment business. And I get it. And there's money there, but when you're coaching a basketball team, you want guys that are locked in and are pros. It's not easy to play 82 games. It's just not, and it takes a certain mindset. When you roll into New York, are you hitting the clubs, or are you watching film because you got to play the Knicks the next day? Like, what are you doing? What? It's your choice. Keegan Murray will be watching film and getting a good night's sleep. And eating a good meal, and he'll be ready to go the next day and perform to his maximum capability. And I think that's what culture is. Now, we're not foolish. We're talking about guys in their 20s. They want to have fun. 82 games, it's a long time. It's a better part of a year. Am I never going to go out? Am I never going to go see friends if I get to town? And yeah, he'll see friends. He'll go to dinner, but he's not hanging out in the clubs and sleep until 2. He's not doing that. He's up. He's going to have breakfast. He's going to get ready. And when you're getting ready to play the Lakers, I might have to guard LeBron James. I better do my homework, okay? Because it's not going to be a pleasant night, and he knows that. So he is mature beyond his years in that sense. So if you're looking for a culture guy, look no further than Keegan Murray.
Another one of the things that I love about Keegan is when the Kings acquired Domantas Sabonis at the trade deadline, they've been looking for now someone to fill in that 4 spot or that wing position that is a good fit next to a guy like Sabonis, can be a good front court partner for Sabonis, but also fits well with the speed and ball handling and scoring of De'Aaron Fox. And when I look at skill sets of what is a good fit with those two, Keegan Murray's skill sets seem to check every box: defense, floor spacing, shooting, high basketball IQ. And then it easily transitions into a fit versus best talent available conversation. You just said you think that Keegan could be the best talent available, especially at the 4 spot. I believe so as well. But what is your philosophy on when you're building your program, putting together a team that not only has a bunch of talent, but also fits and works well together?
Well, there's 2 things you mentioned. One is the character component, and the other is fit when it comes to philosophy. So we're an up-tempo team. We run all makes and misses. We're going to press and run. So we want to recruit talented athletes with skill because we run a lot of motion, and we have to have guys that understand how to play with 4 other guys. So is it a curl cut? Is it a back cut? Is it a flare screen? Is it a down screen? Is it a double away? Is it a basket cut? Are they switching? How are they guarding ball screens? A lot of decisions have to be made. So we're trying to evaluate that as best we can along with talent level. I'm a huge Sabonis fan. When he was a freshman, we played them in the NCAA tournament out in Seattle. And I remember saying, that dude right there because he was just kind of coming onto the scene. They had 3 or 4 other guys that they were kind of talking about. It was one of those teams that Mark had. It was really good. They made a run. But I said, that guy's the best pro prospect on that team, and he'll be in the league in short order. And I've enjoyed watching his growth. And you're right. I mean, I think Keegan and he would be great together. I remember watching De'Aaron Fox a lot in high school, and was always impressed with him. So you're talking about a core group of guys that I think can get you to the playoffs without question. But, Keegan's a guy that I think fits positionally. He can stretch the floor with his tremendous three-point shooting ability. He can post. He can switch. You mentioned his defensive ability. I think as good as he is on offense, and he's certainly put numbers up, he's an even better defender. He can switch any position. He's a traffic rebounder. He's a shot blocker. He's a shot blocker who stays out of foul trouble. But at the end of the day, he's a really good decision maker. Because, one thing, when I worked for John McLeod, who was an NBA head coach for many years, he said this all the time when guys were trying to make the pros. They don't pay mistake makers. And Keegan Murray is not a mistake maker.
Today's episode of Locked On Kings is brought to you by Built Bar, the protein bars that taste like candy bars. We've been asking, and Built delivered. Built granola bars are here. Built granola bars come in 3 unbelievable flavors. There's chocolate peanut butter, chocolate coconut, and white chocolate berry. If you want to try all 3 flavors, you can get a mixed box at built.com right now. There are so many different bars and puffs, and now granola bars for you to enjoy. So many different flavors, and all of them are healthy for you. 150 calories, 15 grams of protein, only 4 grams of sugar. Built granola bars will change your world. Built has cracked the code to better granola, the perfect healthy snack to pack in your lunch, take on the road, or eat as a snack. Pair that with a puff or a Built bar, which are basically candy bars and candy sweets that are good for you. It is a can't miss decision. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order, whether it's granola bars, puffs, bars, whatever it is. Promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. When you were recruiting Keegan, what was it that drew your attention? What was it about him that said, I want him in my program? Because I wonder if there are parallel feelings or similar feelings to what Kings fans, or maybe even the Kings front office, is feeling right now about adding Keegan to Sacramento's group.
Well, it's a little bit different because, my perspective on Keegan and his twin brother, Chris, they are in the same class as my son, Patrick, who started at the other forward position with Keegan. Mm-hmm. So I've been watching Keegan and Chris since they were in 4th grade. So I've had a long time to watch them. They were always skinny, skilled players. All right. So if I took you to a game when they were sophomores and juniors in high school, you would have said, boy, they're good players. But they didn't look like NBA players. Their dad, Kenyon, who was a McDonald's All-American, did a really good job raising them right, along with his wife, Michelle, but I think really raising them in the basketball world, teaching them how to play. And so it really wasn't until later in their senior year, you look up and say, wait a minute, these kids are 6'8.5", and they're 225. A minute ago, they were 6'5", 178. So the athleticism came. It came a little bit later, but they could always dribble, pass, and shoot. So they weren't highly recruited coming out of high school. They weren't top 100 players. Matter of fact, we were recruiting a couple guys that we said, you know what, these guys are better than them, and let's go in that direction. So, the Kings or any other NBA franchise wasn't watching these two at the NBA Top 100 camp a couple years ago because they weren't invited. But they're invited to the party now.
Not just invited to the party, expected to be at the very top of the lottery, or close to the very top.
Exactly right.
His story has been so fun to follow and read about, and so many testimonies like what you're giving about just the hard worker that he is. And to make the jump that he made between his rookie season or his freshman season to his sophomore season, going from 7 points a game to 23 points a game. I know Luka Garza, of course, went to the NBA, and that opened up opportunities for him. But you don't just make that jump just because the opportunity is available to you, right? What did Keegan do? What work did he put in during that freshman season that made this sophomore jump possible?
I think it's a combination of things. Number one, he did put the work in, and that's necessary. But it's more, I think, a function of his personality. Like, so he figured out when he came in as a freshman, he just wanted to contribute on a really good team. We had a really good team. We were a 2 seed. We had the National Player of the Year. He started 4 or 5 games and played a lot, made the all-rookie team. All right, well, we graduated 2 pros, Luka Garza, Joe Wieskamp. Okay, all right, it's your turn. So you got to take that next step. Well, he watched those guys work. You know, Luka was a senior, Joe was a junior. He watched how they performed. He watched how they prepared, and he accepted the challenge. And I just said, hey, look, you know, you're going to be the guy that we're coming to now. And okay, coach, like no big deal, no fanfare. No, I better get ready. It's like I know what I have to do. I'm excited about the challenge, but it's just no big deal. I'm going to play the game the right way to the best of my ability. We had a scrimmage against a really good Bradley team, so we always have one scrimmage, one exhibition game, and then we play the season. And it was that day in November. I said, here it comes. Exactly what we hoped would happen. He's ready, and he had very, very few off nights. You know, I laugh because, you know, we got knocked off in the NCAA tournament after he set the record for points in a Big Ten tournament history. It was, Keegan had an off game. He had 21 and 9. You know, that's the definition of a great player. They were locked in on stopping him. He didn't take as many shots as he normally takes, but he had 21 and 9. Pretty good bad night.
Yeah. I'll take that bad night any day in
Sacramento.
That bad
night. Yeah, exactly.
Well, to make that scoring jump, to average over 20 points a game, people might look at that and look at the box score and suggest, okay, he's the leading scorer. He's the go-to guy, drawing up a bunch of plays for him. But I heard you talk about with D'Lo and KC, ESPN 1320 here in Sacramento yesterday, and also got this testimony from one of the beat writers that covers Iowa basketball, that it wasn't that way. A lot of his offense, a lot of his game came in the flow of the offense, which is another thing that just makes me excited about the possibility of him fitting in and maybe even being a day one impact player alongside of Sabonis and Fox. Those two are going to draw so much attention. Harrison Barnes as well is going to draw so much attention that it sounds like Keegan Murray would have more than his fair share of opportunities of getting good looks and scoring in the flow of the offense there. Is that accurate?
I think it is, and I think you make a good point. You talked about 3 really good players there. They're going to love playing with Keegan because he's not going to be complaining, you need more sets for me, I need more shots. The beautiful part of his game is he scores from anywhere on the floor. So you talk about spacing. You know, he can spot up and shoot the deep 3 ball. You know, Indiana was really packing it in on him, and he made 8 threes in the semifinals of the conference tournament. Like he's got great range and a great touch. He drives left, he drives right. He goes off either shoulder in the post. He gets to the free throw line. He gives it up easy. So he is not going to demand the ball. And you're right, our offense is not come down, run a set for Keegan. Now, we will occasionally run a set for Kate after a timeout, coming down the stretch. You know, we'll post him, we'll pop him out. But the thing that I always felt when you have a great player is you don't keep him in one location. Even when we had Garza, you just don't put him on a block. He plays the wing, he plays on the block, he plays in the high post, he plays in transition, he rips and drives from the wing, you run some isolation stuff for him, but Keegan will get his points organically through the offense, whatever they decide to run. And if they run plays all year long for the other 3 guys you just mentioned, he'll never complain one time, and he'll still score double figures. And those guys will love him because when they get double teamed and kick it to him, he'll make the shot.
Today's episode of Locked On Kings also brought to you by Bet Online. Our partners at Bet Online continue to be the number one source for all of your sports betting needs and information. You can find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs happening right now, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures that are out right now. Bet Online is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. You can use that Kings knowledge, basketball knowledge, sports knowledge to make you some money at Bet Online, where the game starts. In all my research building up to this draft, I've only seen two consistent criticisms of Keegan Murray. One is his age, and that's universal. That's not specific to Murray. And Monty McNair, Kings general manager, has shown that he doesn't care about that, drafting Davion Mitchell last year.
Right.
But some people seem to put too much stock in that, in my opinion. The second thing was he's labeled almost a safe pick, which seems to have more of a negative connotation sometimes than a positive connotation when you're up in the top 3, top 4 conversation of a draft, when ceilings could be through the roof and superstar potential. What do you think about those two criticisms, labeling him a safe pick and concerns about Keegan's age coming into the NBA?
Well, first of all, I've never coached in the NBA, so I don't pretend to be an expert. But one of the things that, from where I sit, I've been in the game for 40 years. I just don't understand that at all. To me, draft the best players. Well, maybe in 2 years he'll be great. Yeah, maybe. Maybe he won't be. Like, who can really play right now? It's not like he's 35. Right. He's 22 years old. He's going to play in the league for 13 or 15 more years. He's going to take care of his body. He will impact your franchise immediately. He has the ability to score on all different levels. He plays both ends of the floor. He's always on winning teams. But let's take an 18-year-old who I watched him play in an AAU tournament, and he looked pretty good. Let's take a shot at him. In 3 years from now, you're saying, why did we draft that guy? Now, some of those guys pan out. But I can promise you one thing. Keegan Murray is going to pan out. Safe pick, age doesn't matter. He is going to help that franchise get to the playoffs. And that I can promise you.
You mentioned immediate impact, music to my ears. The Kings essentially have reports of a playoff mandate this year. They're making sure this streak doesn't get to 17, are going to do their best to make sure of that. On top of that, they only have Sabonis under contract for 2 more years, essentially need to win to convince him to re-sign, so that trading away Tyrese Halliburton doesn't look like a disaster from Monty McNair. So an immediate impact player, not just in free agency, not just in trades, but in the draft, would be an ideal scenario for Sacramento. You don't want to put too much pressure on any rookie. They deserve time to cope and get used to the game at the NBA level. But you really believe that Keegan Murray could use the time in training camp and be pretty much ready to go to maybe not be a starter day one, although that would be fantastic, but he can be a guy that will affect winning basketball right out the gate.
Yeah, I would say go ahead and put the pressure on him. None better that I've ever had at handling that. He is not going to be intimidated. He's not going to worry about it. He will show up and lock into, okay, what do we want to accomplish? You're going to have a new system. Okay, I'm going to be playing with a brand new team. I'm a rookie. But you know what? I know what I can do, and I'm here to help. I'm not here because I'm worried about my second contract and what are you going to do for me? He is going to be there to help his teammates accomplish what you just said, get to the playoffs. Then let's win when we get there. Let's perform at the highest level. But he understands team basketball. He understands culture. He understands what being part of a team is, and he's not foolish. He's going to hear all the same stuff, and the reporters are going to bring it up to him, like, "Hey, I've been in the playoffs in a long time, and there's a playoff mandate this year." Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to bring it every day, and I'm going to live my life as a professional. And we have a good core of guys here. Like, this is not out of the realm of possibility. Not only could we make the playoffs, we could do some damage when we get there. And he's going to enjoy the ride.
As expected, Coach, you made the feeling stronger. The idea of Keegan Murray in a Kings uniform is certainly one in the top of my mind, and we'll see if it actually happens. Really appreciate you taking the time here during this this busy season. Best of luck to you and your program going forward. I know it's sometimes hard to lose a player like Keegan Murray, but we'll thank you in abundance if he ends up.
I'm thrilled for him, Matt. Thanks for having me on. I hope everything works out with him there. I mean, if he goes higher, great. We don't know. That's the beauty of the draft, but it would be a great franchise for him. You'll love him. You'll enjoy working with him.
Man, I'm still buzzing after talking to Coach McCaffery. Yeah, he definitely did solidify my feelings of wanting Keegan Murray. Not that I was expecting to feel any less desire of the Kings drafting Keegan Murray after talking to his college head coach. But even so, the things that Coach McCaffery had to say about who Keegan is as a person, his work rate, how he will welcome the pressure of being that immediate impact player. Keegan Murray to me just checks all of the boxes. And I understand the argument of wanting to take a guy like Shaedon Sharpe or a Jaden Ivey or even Chet Jabari or Paulo ahead of him because of their high ceilings and their star potential. But I agree with Coach McCaffery. I could see a scenario where when we're looking back at this draft 5 years from now, Keegan Murray is the best, if not top 2, top 3 players in this draft. Plus, an immediate impact player. If you care about Rookie of the Year, I think Keegan Murray is a front runner to win Rookie of the Year, especially if he's starting day 1 in Sacramento, which I think is possible. So fingers crossed, at least for me, that Monte McNair decides to take Keegan Murray. I don't know if my opinion on that is going to change as we get closer to the draft. As of right now, if I had my pick, it would be pretty simple for me. But let me know if you feel the same, if your attitude towards Keegan Murray changed at all from this conversation. If you still prefer another prospect over Keegan Murray, that's all fair game. Let's talk about it. That's what's the fun about the draft. We still have a month until the draft itself happens. So let's talk through all these scenarios. You can reach me on Twitter at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com, or leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. Appreciate all the amazing support on Locked On Kings. I think this is 10 or 11 straight days of content. I have 3 more days of content coming for you, including 2 national draft analysts that are going to be joining me. And I have it scheduled and we have a time, but I hope it actually happens. Head coach of the Stockton Kings and Sacramento Kings legend and former 6th man of the year, Bobby Jackson, will be joining me in an upcoming Locked On Kings podcast. Super excited for that. So I cannot wait for all these guests to continue, all this great draft coverage to continue. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying this offseason time. I hope you are as well. Remember, I'm doing a giveaway. If we can get over 350 reviews on the Locked On Kings podcast on Apple Podcasts, I will be buying a pair of opening night tickets to the Kings inside the Golden One Center. Whoever they're playing, I'll buy a pair of tickets, lower bowl tickets. I want to clarify that. It's not going to be upper bowl. I will buy a pair of lower bowl opening night tickets, and I will be giving them away to a Locked On Kings listener if we get over 350 reviews on Apple Podcasts. I think we're in the 320s right now, so it's very, very achievable. Thanks again for all your great support. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. Until then, my name is Matt George. You have been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.